Hi Pisces, and welcome to your overview for the year ahead. In this overview, I will be discussing some of the major transits that are happening this year that I think are important to note and that may help you navigate the year ahead. This overview is for all Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising. However, keep in mind that the rising sign is the strongest indicator, so definitely watch for your rising sign first, then your sun sign, and then some people do resonate with their moon sign. However, this is more internal and subjective. I also recommend if you have multiple planets in Pisces, like a stellium, so 3 or more planets in Pisces, to listen to this, as well as if you have a stellium in your 12th house. You may also benefit from some of the things I'm going to talk about and may resonate with them as the year goes on. So the first transit I want to talk about is Venus retrograde in Capricorn. This has been an ongoing theme that we've all been dealing with for quite some time. Venus went retrograde December 19th and remains in retrograde as I record this video, and will go direct January 29th in your 11th house of friendships and groups. Once she goes direct, Venus will just hang out here in this house. So until March 6th, I should say. So it's a very long transit. So when looking at what this might mean, we first want to look at what Venus means. So Venus is all about love, beauty, romance, aesthetics, finance, money, our values. And the 11th house is the house of friendships, groups, social awareness, humanitarian efforts, technologies here. It's the house of gains as well. So our long-term hopes and wishes for the future are also here. So Venus retrograde here might be getting you to reevaluate and rethink your groups of friends or the groups that you belong to. So that could be anything. That could be a social media group. That could be, a sports club, or, I know a lot of us belong to online groups now. You could be reevaluating your goals, your long-term gains and wishes, even your friendships, right? So balance needs to happen here. So if you're doing more of the work in a friendship or vice versa, you might realize you've been neglecting a friendship and taking them for granted. You also might realize that some of these friends just don't serve you anymore, or a group that you used to be a part of just doesn't align with you and your values anymore. Venus will ask you to reevaluate the importance of these people or these groups in your life. For some, like I said, you might be leaving a group or a friend. For others, an old friend may reappear. So it's a great time to reconnect with old people, with old groups. Maybe that's even social media groups. And for some, you might meet a new friend, but they'll be from a past life. You would just connect instantly with this person. So in terms of your long-term goals and dreams, you're rethinking them. Maybe your values have changed since, the last time you thought you wanted these things. And so you're just rethinking them. Doesn't mean you're making any decisions, and I urge you not to, but they may be changing in terms of, what you want for yourself in the future. So a question you might be asking yourself is, what do I value, and how are my dreams in alignment or not with those values? How much, and money might be a factor too here with Venus. So how much money am I spending on getting to my dreams, hopes, and wishes? How much money am I spending on my friends or my social media or technology? Like all these themes and money are going to be kind of intertwined, so it could play out a few different ways. For some, you might reopen social media if you've been away from it. For some, you might realize that you're on it too much and that it's taking over your life and maybe blocking you from your long-term gains because it's kind of addicting and you just sit on it all day. For those people, a detox would be really good to just kind of cut it out for a bit. You might be reassessing like the role technology plays in your life or how much you want it to play in your life. If you are on social media or YouTube or something like that and have a following, you might be realizing that there are things that you want to change about the message you put out there or something like that. Basically rethinking your social connections, asking if you're getting what you want and need from them, and those types of questions. So great time just to review these things. You're going to have more clarity once Venus goes direct January 29th. And then by the time Venus leaves this house, you're going to have like a very clear picture on your hopes and dreams, and, be surrounded by people who are more like your tribe. The next transit I want to talk about is Jupiter. So, Jupiter is kind of the big talk of the year in the astrology circles. Jupiter has moved into Pisces, and this is a very big deal, just because Jupiter is at home in Pisces. So, he can do his best work when he's here. So, Jupiter is in your house, Pisces, which is a huge deal because that's your first house. This is a once in a 12-year lucky streak. He's here till May 10th, where he will dip out and go hang out in your second house. And then he's going to come back into your first house from October 28th all the way through December 20th. So let's talk about what Jupiter in your sign means right now through May 10th. So Jupiter expands. Jupiter is luck, good fortune. Jupiter is generous and, think of the Sagittarius qualities, right? And so when we put it in the first house of self, appearance, the body, first impressions, our attitude, your attitude might see a big change this year. I'm not saying that you have a poor attitude, but you might just take on more Sagittarian qualities. So you might just be more jovial. You might be more generous. Your self-confidence will be high. You'll be very optimistic. If you were a glass half empty person, you're going to be a glass half full person. As a result, this new perspective will actually help you manifest more positivity to you. So it's kind of interesting how that works. I like to think of it as like you're going to be high on your own supply kind of thing. You may have the desire to travel, or you might just feel more extroverted. You might be compelled to expand your mind and go back to school. You may become more spiritual and just, again, have more faith. The only thing to be careful of is, Jupiter expands. He can do too much sometimes. So just careful of like being, too focused around ego and like egotistical arrogance and maybe too much blind faith. But, this is a lucky time for you. So take risks, ask for a raise, get out of your comfort zone and do what you always wanted to do because you're more likely to get it. You have much more luck than you have had in many years, and you're not going to get this transit again for another 12 years. People remember the year Jupiter was in their first house. I recall not really following Jupiter, and I looked back when Jupiter was in my first house, and it was a magical year, right? And I had no idea. So you will look back and just look at this year as just smooth, aligned. Luck just seems to follow you everywhere. Also, because this is the physical body, be careful of weight gain, because you are going to be more indulgent, that you might just have a few too many drinks or sweet tooths or sweets and gain some weight. If you want to put on muscle, though, this is a very good year because you do that a little easier. Overall, this is just a wonderful, wonderful transit, and I just hope it's magical for you guys, and I hope that you utilize the energy well, because sometimes, because luck comes to us so easily, we tend to get a bit lazy. So I always say don't just rely on Jupiter, like put yourself out there and milk it, milk this energy while you have it. Now, when Jupiter dips out from May through October, he's going to go into your second house. So this is an increase in money. The second house is the money you earn. It's your values, your material possessions. So you might buy an item of high value, like a house or a car or something like that. Just mind the retrogrades, of course. You might obtain more material possessions. You might get a pay raise. If you're not happy with what you're making now, definitely apply for jobs, because I see you getting a better one. Maybe a promotion or something like that. And again, careful of overindulgence here, because again, the second house, talks about food. So we can also put some weight gain on in that department as well. But also be careful of arrogance here. So the way that might play out is you buy more items of value and you feel like you are better than other people. So, that's like a negative way it could manifest. For most people, it's not going to happen like that. But you will see an increase in your money around this time. So if you're having money issues right now, just know that shortly that will end and you will gain some more. Now, again, it can make you spend more. So just be mindful, make sure you're saving a bit, because again, Jupiter can overdo it. You don't want to spend all your money and then have nothing left to show for it. But looks really good for you guys. The one last thing I forgot to mention is, or maybe I did mention it, I can't remember, is your self-esteem will blossom here. Now, the first house kind of deals with that because it's your, your first impressions and your attitude, but the second house is more about like your self-worth. So you're going to start to feel really good about yourself. As a result, that will bring in more money, and then the more money you bring in, it's going to, attract more, more self-worth. Now, we shouldn't really tie our self-worth totally to money, but just that's kind of how it works sometimes. So enjoy it while it lasts. And then Jupiter is going to head right back into your first house for the remainder of the year. So, I mean, this year is amazing. I mean, Jupiter everywhere is amazing, but I really think you guys have a little lucky streak with the first and second house. The second transit I want to talk about, or I guess I should say third, is the Saturn in Aquarius. So this has been an ongoing theme. You are very used to this by now. Saturn moved into Aquarius March of 2020. We all saw what that did as on a collective level. But for you, it moved into your 12th house, and it will remain there until March of 2023. So Saturn is the opposite of Jupiter. Saturn restricts, Saturn makes you work, Saturn puts pressure on you. He will test you wherever he is in your chart. Saturn's depression, Saturn can be loss, Saturn can be wake-up calls, reality checks. Not the best planet of all. But Saturn ultimately does this because he wants you to do better and have a solid foundation. So I'm very happy that you have Jupiter in your first house this year, because I think that's going to lessen the heaviness of what this Saturn in the 12th may feel like. My astrology teacher did tell us, and it's interesting because I follow people in their charts and I've noticed this, that people with Saturn in their 12th, sometimes they get so depressed that they want to get on medication. And of course, there's no judgment there, but usually when Saturn leaves the 12th, they no longer need it. So I think that's kind of interesting. So what is the 12th house? So the 12th house is a hidden house. It's the subconscious, the unconscious. It's the house of endings, closure, healing. It's the house of our, the traumas that we don't know we have. There's no form here, right? It's a formless house. It's everything that's hidden. So it also rules, hospitals, prisons, ashrams, addiction centers. It does rule addictions as well. It's our self-undoing, right? Our self-sabotaging behaviors are in here as well. So this is a really interesting transit because Saturn is going to test this area. And it's the reason it's weird is because you're going to feel things that you don't understand where they're coming from, because logic isn't available here. So you might feel depressed, lonely, or isolated and not understand why. Saturn is trying to clear out your subconscious closet, so he's knocking around those boxes up there. So know that. So old fears and traumas may be getting triggered so you can know that they're there and release them. This is the house of endings because Saturn wants you to clean up all this before he moves into your first house. So you are being asked to face your demons and release them again before Saturn gets into your first house. This process can be very uncomfortable. Old beliefs that no longer serve you will be coming up to be released. So I really encourage you to do this work and do not avoid it, because avoiding it, Saturn's going to pressure you more. I think therapy is crucial now, or any type of spiritual healing. So hypnosis, past life regression, dream analysis, meditation. I think of childbirth when I think of this transit, because it's very intense, not only for the mother, but the baby goes through quite a bit of stress to do what it needs to do to come out of the mother's body, right? And there has to be a lot of pain and discomfort for this birth to happen. So this is very similar. You're going through this birthing phase. If you struggle with spending time with yourself or being alone, this is going to be especially hard. Because Saturn might force you into isolation somehow. I mean, with COVID, we've seen that, but this is going to be different. He might force you, or you might just feel like being alone. I'd be really curious for anyone to share. Like, of course, everyone's chart's going to be different, but I'd be really curious to hear how you have experienced Jupiter in your first house with Saturn in the 12th. Like, I'm hoping that the Jupiter in the first really lightens that energy. But, other ways that this may play out is that you might just have a deep dive into psychoanalysis, spiritual healing, dream analysis, all these 12th house things. If you have addictions, you might become very aware of them at this time. So a lot of healing can happen here, but it might not be without some discomfort. So just keep that in mind. The next transit I want to talk about is Mars. Now, this is a very short transit, but I think it's notable because it's also in your 12th house. So Mars goes into Aquarius March 7th through April 14th, and I do encourage people to mark this on their calendars. The reason that I'm pointing this transit out is because we already have one malefic planet in this house, which is Saturn. And then we're going to have another malefic planet, Mars, in this house. So we have two malefic planets. And, malefic planets aren't always bad, but they're not always easy either, right? They're not like Venus and Jupiter. So I want people to note this energy so that they know what's going on when it comes up, and they know how to utilize this energy for their higher good. So might be an intense month. People with addictions may become very aware of them at this time. Mars inflames things, right? So the negative of Mars is that, or lower expression, should I say, or the challenging aspects of Mars is that he inflames things. He's conflict, he's war, he's violence, aggression, cutting, right? He rules metal. He's very impatient and restless as well, too. And so this is in this like subconscious hidden house. So you might just feel really restless and irritable and just very easily triggered at this time. So if you have anger issues, they might be inflamed at this time. Just keep that in mind. And, the positives of Mars are that he's motivation, he's ambition, he's drive, he's charisma, he's energy. So it could just be that you have the motivation and energy and confidence to deal with this stuff, to do the therapy, or go into, therapy, or, research psychology, or, it could just be that you're diving deep into these hidden, holistic ways of healing. You might get into hypnotherapy or something like that. But I do think many people will feel very restless, frustrated, and just irritated and not really know why. It might be better to spend time alone during this time because you're less likely to fight with other people if you're, not around them. Therapy, again, would be very, very helpful for people, or any type of 12th house healing, really. But I encourage you to use this energy and channel it into your health versus projecting it onto others. Either way, no matter how this transit feels, you'll get through it pretty quickly because it's not long. But I just want you to know that if, because the 12th house is so uncomfortable sometimes, that if your mental health takes a hit, or your dreams start to be weird, or, you have this weird anxiety that you can't pinpoint, it might just be this energy and it will pass. The next transit I want to talk about is Uranus. So Uranus is going direct in Taurus, January 18th. In your, what house is he going in? In your third house. So Uranus has been in Taurus for a while, since I believe May of 2018 or somewhere around there. And he's going to stay here until all the way through like 2025 or 2026. So this is something that, we're all familiar with. For you, Pisces, Uranus is hanging out in your third house, but he's going direct. So what does this mean? So Uranus is the planet of innovation, rebellion, liberation. He's kind of a wild card because he is, very unpredictable. These changes could be, suddenly magnificent and surprising and amazing, or they could be shocking, destabilizing, and very uncomfortable. We just really never know what he's going to do. Ultimately, he wants to liberate you from something. So this is going to be matters pertaining to the third house. So the mind, thinking, any type of communication, whether that's yours, or whether that's, you work in a communication field like marketing, blogging, editing, If you do lectures or you do public speaking or something like that. This house also rules siblings and, relatives that are not your children or your parents, so cousins, aunts, uncles. This rules your community, your neighbors, early education. So, preschool all the way to high school. If you are a teacher in these areas, this might be prominent for you. Third house also rules our vehicles and transportation. So, cars, trains, planes, bikes, wheelchairs, however you communicate. It also rules short distance travel. So there's a few ways this can manifest. I, of course, can't talk about all of it, but I feel like the way you think and communicate is going to drastically change, and it might be quite sudden or shocking to other people. Flexibility is very key for you right now in third house matters. Your communication with others may be especially important around this time, and you might feel really almost overstimulated by new ideas, concepts, and thoughts that you're thinking. So this could be a bit overwhelming on a lower frequency and cause a little bit of anxiety or nervousness if you're not channeling it properly, or if you're not looking after yourself. There may be a sudden and unexpected short distance travel. So, maybe to another town or another state by car. It might have to do with siblings, neighbors, or your community. Because Uranus rules the unusual, you could feel suddenly compelled to study astrology, tarot, or something else that's hidden or occult, like, some type of mysticism or even research. Detectives and psychology are in this house. You might need to learn more about tech and devices, and quite fast. If you are in a communication field, you may produce some interesting material. You might shock some people for better or for worse. And again, if badly aspected, this is just anxiety and nervousness, and it's just important to get out of your head at this time because you're just going to be on mental overload. Another thing is to just be very cautious while driving, because the third house rules vehicles and because Uranus is so unstable. The other thing I want to talk about, and the last thing, is the North Node. So the North Node is transiting Taurus and the South Node is transiting Scorpio. For you, Pisces, that puts the North Node in your third house and the South Node in your ninth house. So as you can see on the screen, these are the dates that the nodes are exact. But, keep in mind this is a whole year thing, but around these dates, you might notice these energies a bit more. So the North Node is our true destiny. And the reason I'm bringing, this up right after Uranus is because Uranus and the North Node have a lot of similarities to me. Because Uranus is kind of wanting to liberate you in third house realms, and maybe shockingly and suddenly. And the North Node can also act like this as well. The North Node puts us on the path we're supposed to be if we're not. So, and this is also in the third house. So there's a heavy emphasis on third house matters for you next year. Again, this is the mind axis with the third and the ninth house. So you might be asked to focus more on your communication in day-to-day life. The details and the applicability versus these abstract concepts are going to be important to you. For some of you, this might be a little challenging just because the South Node is in the ninth house and the ninth house is that bigger picture. You might, be more focused on your community, your neighbors, your siblings. Long distance travel might not be focused, or if it is, you're going to have to balance it with these other closer to home matters. Communication is huge for this year, and the mind. So you might be inspired by a new idea, concept, technology, device, or a sibling. This like the example with how this might turn out is like it would plant a seed that would grow over the next few years to come. You might feel compelled to write a book or start a blog or get on social media. If you do get education, it's not going to be from like higher learning institution. It could be, but I feel like it would be from several places. So books, people, seminars, webinars, internet, you might feel more like a Gemini next year and just need this constant intellectual stimulation. And for some people, you might almost feel like you have ADHD this year. I'm just putting it out there. For some, the details and day-to-day things you learn are creating this foundation for you to become a teacher or a guru or a mentor or you know, someone like that. Either way, your horizons will be broadened by the end of this transit. um, Expect chance encounters with your community and your neighbors. You're not supposed to know everything, and you're being asked to just be curious about everything and everyone. Because the ninth house, or sorry, the South Node is in the ninth house, just be mindful to keep your ego at the door. Um, you know, you might have great knowledge, but this year you're not being asked to you know, focus on that. You're really being asked to move into this third house area. So I mean, if you're in the communication field, I think that you're going to soar. And if you work with family or neighbors or your community, I think that this is also going to be a very pivotal year for you. Either way, the third house is very prominent. So you know, that's kind of what I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this and it wasn't too confusing. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. If any of this resonated, or if you experienced anything that I said, please talk, like, mention it in the comments. If you know, if something happened and that relates to one of these transits and I didn't mention it, please share, because you know, I love to learn, and of course I can't discuss everything, but I would really love to know how, in particular for you Pisces risings and sun, how, well, I would say rising more than sun, but how Saturn in your 12th house and Jupiter in your first house are going for you. So I thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for more videos.